member states. And we are 344 members. And the smallest group is the Maltese group. We are just 5 Maltese. But I called somebody who yesterday, I had this experience yesterday because I was hosting a group of Czech people and I was speaking to them about the Czech members. And one of the Czech members said, well, Malta is the smallest group, but everybody knows them and everybody hears them because they are so active. So it's not a matter of size, but rather it's a matter of input. And thankfully, we do leave our impact.
That brings me to my next question, actually. 5 members out of 344. I understand your vice presidency role is an elected role. How can 5 members bring Anna Maria Darmanin to vice presidency?
Okay, it was a long journey, I have to say, because I've been a member since 2004 when Malta joined the European Union. And generally, you know, country does matter when you're lobbying for certain things, even although it's not said. Well, country does matter because, okay, it's good to have the Germans on our side, so I'll give them this and so on and so forth. However, I think in my case, more than actually the country, it was more, I guess, all of us 5 members, it's the work track record we had. So, you know, automatically when somebody says, but how did you manage? I said, we work hard. We work hard and we leave an input. And this is how we succeeded. To what worked as my disadvantage then was the fact that some people did tell me in my face, but you come from a small country. I say, so? Actually, small country holds an elected post. Or, but you are so young, and believe me, I'm going through my midlife crisis in the sense of, you know, you don't feel young any longer, but you're so young, you cannot. So these were the 2 things working against me. Not because I was a woman, because some people think it's a woman, because there's a lot of emphasis on equality. Well, I guess it is working hard, gaining a reputation, and the 5 members of the EESC, all of us work very hard and do our best to leave an input. So if you even see some analysis of statistics in terms of how much we are rapporteurs, we take up, ratio-wise, we're the 2nd most active country in taking up being the rapporteur of a position. And you can see that we be rapporteurs of some very important positions, such as, for example, Stefano Maldia, who comes from the Chamber of Commerce, was the rapporteur for online gambling, which is an industry which is very important for us. Myself, I was a rapporteur for access to finance for SMEs, also SMEs being very important, not only for Malta, but across Europe, but particularly Malta, where we have especially micro enterprises. So this is it, working hard and leaving an impact.
Well, after that, coming to our subject, which is obviously the Mediterranean. We've opened this conference with quite criticism on a statement made by Romano Prodi on his termination as he was EU president, whereby he had admitted that the Mediterranean is not high on the agenda of the EU. And I said he hasn't seen much difference under Barroso. You are a consultation body, the EESC. What are your views? Does the Mediterranean represent a problem when it comes to irregular immigrants and that is it? Or from an EU perspective, it's being seen much more than that, and possibly an opportunity for the EU itself?
So, unfortunately, I have to agree with you that yes, the Mediterranean has not featured high on the political agenda. Nothing has changed much since Prodi's time, and yes, Barroso neither has done anything about it. And sadly, it is 2 presidents coming from the Mediterranean region, and we don't see anything happening. And not to sound pessimistic, but not much will be done. Not in the sense of because there isn't so much a political will, but actually trying to be realistic, despite having a Cypriot presidency which is giving a lot of importance to the region. Otherwise they wouldn't have put this as one of the priorities. So we know the Cypriot presidency is pushing very much on this, and this is where we have to find a link also for our presidency in between to keep pushing for this. But realistically, there are so many regional policies at the moment going on. You have the Baltic states, you have the Danube region, you have the North Sea. A lot of focus is being given on these regional policies. And also combined with the fact that we see that there is major problems going on in terms of the finance of the European Union. So on the one hand, we have some regions saying we have to focus more on these regions. On the other hand, we have member states not wanting to pay up. Till yesterday, we see the situation in which the budget of 2012 has not been finalized in terms of disbursement which have to be done. So we know that certain programs are not being given the budget of the obligations that we have to do, let alone 2013, let alone the financial framework 2014-2020. So tangibly, in reality, unfortunately, we are not seeing commitment from the member states. This is the Council. And I'm not pointing fingers to any specific country, because Malta is part of the Council as well. And we are pulling our own individual interests as different countries. So you have on the one hand, we're saying we want regional policy, which means money being put to the regional policy. On the other hand, you have the finance ministers arguing and not wanting to put in money for the upcoming years. David Cameron taking upon himself now to be the extreme of the anti-budget for the EU. So in actual fact, with these difficulties, we know we'll have, if not a lesser budget, the best we can aim for is a budget which remains the same, which remains untouched. Can we be thinking of a wide regional policy? From an EESC perspective, as you heard with Dimitriadis, we are pushing for this. From a personal perspective, I would say the reality is very difficult because of this political situation. So the way I see it happening is we have to be the ones who are making it happen if the Council is resisting in terms of financing. This is where organizations such as the Malta Institute of Management, for example, such as the Chamber of Commerce, such as the counterparts in Cyprus, should be the drivers to start showing that agreement and cooperation within the region can happen. Because why is the Mediterranean region so particular? Because it's so difficult to get so diverse partners together as well. So if we, as social partners, as civil society organizations, as people within the industry show that there is the opportunity, that this can happen, that we are creating a network. So it would be championed the way I see it from Malta and Cyprus, but then involving not all the countries at first, but a number of countries which are quite diverse in their nature. And having something like this, which is a little bit more low-key than an actual regional policy, and seeing the whole region as one, and therefore programs specifically for that region. If we take it in this way and show that it can happen, funding can come for it. And once you get funding for it, you strengthen it. And it may take longer, but this is how it would lead then to having a whole region being seen and being directed and focused on with a regional policy. So the criticism towards the previous presidents and the current president is there. We are all convinced, you've heard yesterday, today, now, we are all convinced this is what we need. The reality is, unfortunately, that many member states are keeping back the money. So we have to be the ones who are the driving force, not telling our politicians do this, but showing them it can happen.
Thanks. Coming to a subject which, as you said before, is at your heart, SMEs and micro enterprises. You know, it's the heart of Europe's economy. It is and it will be even more that of North Africa, particularly micro enterprises. I know you were a reporter on a particular paper presented by the EESC to the Commission. Could you maybe give us an overview, a few points, what was on the paper in relation to access to finance?
This was a reaction to the Commission's action plan for access to finance of SMEs, which is now going to be started implementing. And the Commission is focusing a lot on venture funding. Venture funding as being an opportunity for SMEs to get finances, since we know that the banks are being very difficult in this respect. So the Commission has the aim of making regulations a little bit easier for SMEs, focusing more on making SMEs attractive for venture capital. Our reaction is, in actual fact, 90% of SMEs still see banks as the opportunity for loans, for financing. So, whereas it's good to address the venture capital market, on its own it won't be sufficient. We want to see the addressing of the problem of banks, because last year we see an average across Europe, only 25% of the SMEs who ask for loans got a loan from the bank. Therefore, we need to address that problem. And whereas we're seeing the emphasis being put on economic governance, we now have Basel III being discussed, we have the CRD, which with new regulations. But within this framework, we have to see of how we can ensure that access to finance for SMEs is facilitated, is made simpler. And this is where we see, for example, the role of intermediary banks for funds such as Erremme and COSME. I mean, Erremme, I know Bank of Valletta is very happy with Erremme and has been making a lot of publicity about Erremme, which is very good. But Malta took so long to start implementing Erremme, where all the rest of the member states have been doing it for years and years, which is very good. Finally, we have Erremme and SMEs accessing Erremme funds. But how can we ensure that the focus is on these funds from intermediary banks and make it attractive for the banks itself to actually promote this kind of funding? Then you are here known as the champion of Islamic finance, but we do recommend participatory banking as one of the opportunities for SMEs. And this is where we're calling the Commission to have a green paper on participatory banking, because we do see like Malta, Italy, Germany, and a number of countries doing something in terms of participatory banking, but we need to have a framework. If anything, let's start discussing this framework. And this is where we make a clear proposal to the Commission, which I hope, personally, we keep on fighting for this, but I hope to see in the coming months something happening in this respect. Another thing which we propose to the Commission to start thinking about is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is relatively new across Europe, but we're seeing it as a big opportunity for SMEs, primarily being used by Nordic countries, where people within the community have a framework within which they can actually finance SMEs within their own community. So it is like a stock exchange, but without its bureaucracy, without its complications, regulated by an organization and an association, where if I live in Rendi and I still believe my round-the-corner grocer should remain open and should keep on working, because I really like my round-the-corner grocer. So does people in my neighborhood. We have the structure to be able to contribute to finance our round-the-corner grocer and have a return on that, because obviously you need to have a return on that, but actually this grocer will have the funding to be able to operate. So we're saying crowdfunding is one of the areas which we would like to see also a better framework and as an opportunity for SMEs.
That to actually push not just SMEs, but very importantly micro enterprises. Last question on a subject that I know you have been working on as well. It came out throughout the conference, both for the Italian representatives, for the Greek representatives, for the Portuguese. Various austerity measures were taken over the last couple of years. All participants said we've taken austerity measures, but we're exactly at the same point we were before the austerity measures. We're not experiencing growth. The austerity measures left us to nowhere. What's next? beyond austerity measures. What's your thoughts, comments about it?
It's a very sore subject because both as a European Economic and Social Committee and also personally, but I have to say as an institution we are very much insisting that a lot of measures are being implemented at a fast rate to try and diminish debt, but actually we are keeping the problem going, because what is the situation apart from actually the situation for SMEs? We see a high unemployment rate. I think for me it's always shocking to think that at the moment 52% of young people under the age of 30 in Spain are unemployed. Have been unemployed for a while, have no perspective for a job, and actually are soon not even going to be a statistic because they will not care any longer of even trying to be in education, in some form of education, or trying to be registering for work. I get Spain as the example because it's the extreme example, but we have over 23% on average of young people in Europe without a job. Technically, I always say, and I always push Malta in this respect, you know, thankfully in Malta we do not have this problem of youth unemployment. Our unemployment rate is pretty much normal